Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. At the crossroads of sports and technology, several MLB teams, including the Pittsburgh Pirates, Cincinnati Reds, and St. Louis Cardinals, have been using iPads in the dugout during games this season under strict guidelines set up by MLB. One of those guidelines is that the iPads cannot be connected to Wi-Fi during the game, so all information on the device, such as scouting reports, have to be downloaded before the game. While MLB has been slow to adapt tablet usage, all NFL teams have Microsoft Surface Pros on the sideline through the league's sponsorship deal with the tech brand. Teams in all sports grapple with new technology, how to use it, and how to gain a competitive edge. Look for leagues to provide identical equipment to all of their teams, preferably through sponsorship deals with technology companies, and draft specific usage and implementation rules around them to ensure a level playing field. Sticking with technology, esports beginning to make headlines. We're talking about multiplayer video game competitions. Two of sports media's largest companies have teamed up with the hopes of creating a competitive league and putting the contests on television. The goal? To tap into the largely untouched demographic, young male gamers. Turner Sports and WMEIMG trying to take advantage of the huge growth in esports. More than 205 million people watch esports worldwide. And while details of the partnership have yet to be announced, this deal has been under work for the past year and is expected to be a long-term one. The effort has the best of all worlds: fantasy, league camaraderie, skillful outcomes, young demographics, advertising benefits. Look for this to expand wildly in years to come. 2024 Olympic bids heating up. In a plan that largely remained a mystery to those surrounding it, new details have emerged about bids in Rome for the Olympics. The bid chair recently revealed a list of iconic venues that'll take full advantage of Rome's historic settings and Italy's television-friendly backdrops. While it's still in the works, it reported the cyclists would finish the road race with a sprint on the majestic Via del Fiore Imperiale. Sailing would take place off Sardinia, Sicily, or the Amalfi Coast. And the marathon route would run along Rome's synagogue and mosque to promote interfaith peace. In regards to Rome's readiness, the chair said, "We can do the opening ceremony and the athletics tonight. We are certainly ready. Swimming tonight, 70% of the venues are existing." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, USOC CEO Scott Blackman feels the Americans are deserving of being given the bid because 85% of the venues are already in place, along with a stellar Olympic pedigree as a two-time host. Olympic selection may be more competitive off the field than on. Cities like Rome and LA will compete against Paris, Hamburg, and Budapest for the selection in 2017. Look for the Los Angeles bid to generate widespread support and optimism throughout America.
In addition to Michigan Business School, in addition to all of the other things that he's doing, fresh off of stints at Texaco, Ganassi teams, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and now the president and CEO of the Miami Dolphins and Sun Life Stadium, Tom Garfinkel. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. How do you keep them all straight? So do you have a collection at home that has Texaco hats and Ganassi hats and Padre hats and Diamondback hats? What do you do? How do you know where you are?
Well, it sounds like quite a lot, but that's over about 20 years. So yeah, very aware where I am. In fact, in my closet at home, I've got a nice lineup of actually football helmets. I've got my high school football helmet, and then I have helmets from the University of Colorado, where I went to school, and the University of Michigan, where I went to graduate school, and then I've got a Dolphins helmet up there. So that's really the thing I like to look at. It go from high school to college to the Dolphins. I joke around that it took me 22 years to get into the NFL and into football, and it's kind of an overnight success from that standpoint. 22-year overnight success.
The Diamondbacks in 2008. And then the Padres after that. How did that all happen?
Larry had an opportunity to go to the Diamondbacks, and obviously went there in '06. Was there for a couple of years and learned a lot there before heading over to the Padres. So just a great experience in both. We won the division in '07 and went to the LCS, the playoffs. Had a great experience and had worked with some great people there and learned a lot.
Well, yeah, you talk about the on-the-field stuff, and I know you could take some credit for that, but the big issue for our listeners is the $1.2 billion TV contract you did in San Diego, the concessions, the new Wi-Fi throughout the ballpark, and basically upgraded Petco to a first-class facility. Obviously something you're proud of.
Yeah, well, Larry Lucchino was really sort of the visionary behind Petco Park, and when I got to San Diego, I inherited what was already what I call world-class ballpark. I think at that time, it had been open, probably 5 or 6 years, and all I really did was kind of freshen some things up, add some new things to it. It was probably time for that because it had been open 5 or 6 years, but it was already just a wonderfully conceived place. And, some of the things with the Wi-Fi upgrades, I'm proud of what we did with concessions, and I think we, in a short amount of time, over a couple of years, I think if you go to Petco Park now, still it's one of the best concessions experiences in sports with regards to the diversity of the food and the quality of the food and the job everyone's doing there in terms of it's a great experience to go there and eat and drink and have a good time. And so we did a lot of things to try to improve that part of the experience for sure.
Well, and the rules are different, obviously, but September 9, 2013, you go to another team sport, but that changed your life being president and CEO of the Dolphins, right?
Yeah, it's really a privilege, all these jobs are, I kind of look at them like you're stewards of a public trust. I told the owners of really all the teams I've worked for, and when I came here, I said the same thing to Steve, you don't really own the team. And Steve looked at me and said, I pay a lot of money for this team,
Yeah, I wrote $1 billion check. I own it.
Yeah,
I don't care what you say.
Right. I said, yeah, well, the team was here before you got here. It'll be here after you're gone. And it really belongs to the fans and the community and the people that were here before us, the players, the coaches, and all the staff and people that worked here before. So, Steve certainly understands that and is I think, one of the most responsible unselfish, stewards as an owner I've been around in terms of understanding that. Certainly his, $450 million plus commitment to improving the stadium is a testament to that, but also his passion and desire to win and his commitment and investment in that as well. And he cares. He cares about the fans, and he understands the legacy that came before him with the Dolphins and what that means.
Shameless plug, by the way. Thank you very much for that. I have Larry Lucchino on the next week after you this week. So we're, following in somebody's footsteps. I don't know what that really means. But segue before we get to London and the matter at hand into you're halfway through, maybe more, Sun Life renovation. Probably not called a renovation. 50-year history of the Dolphins, beginning the modernization, new facility, world-class. Talk about the economics for a minute, because it is unreal to know that Steve Ross basically stroked a $425 million check with the understanding there's some return attached to it, but it puts South Florida in line for some Super Bowls, which inure to the benefit of the community even more than the team. So I laid a lot out there. Comment on all that, Bill, if you would.
Well, I think the stadium is 27 years old. Certainly needed upgrading. I think what's most exciting about it is when you really think about, what some of the challenges were with the fan experience at the stadium. The stadium was obviously a multi-use stadium with baseball and everything for many, many years. So it didn't have the intimacy that fans loved about, for example, the old Orange Bowl, and you weren't as close to the field maybe as you could have been. And it's hot, and there's a lot of intermittent, tropical rainstorms that come and go. And when it rains, it's like God's pouring a bucket of water on your head for 10 minutes, and then it doesn't rain for another hour, So, putting this roof canopy on is going to protect people from both those rainstorms as well as the really hot sun. And, that's a big investment, putting a roof canopy on that still has an aperture in the middle and is safe for hurricane type winds and everything else. is a pretty major engineering undertaking and financial undertaking. So the combination of moving the seats 25 feet closer to the field on either side, creating more intimacy, and putting on that roof canopy, both of which were really Steve's vision of change, it have been the most dramatic and impactful things I think we can do to the stadium. And incidentally, it'll still be hot on the field. So, the competitive advantage that people in Miami talk about the Dolphins having for many years for practicing in this heat, for training camp and the weeks leading up to September, and then having those hot September games, is still going to be in play for the players. The fans will be protected from those elements, and again, it's really a testament to Steve's commitment, and he really wanted something that it's going to be here for a long, long time. That the Dolphins would continue to stay in Miami for and be solidified in staying in Miami for the next 30 years. And one thing Steve never really talked about was moving the team. He's never threatened to move the team or come out and said, I'm going to, he wanted the team to stay where it is. He knew that was important, and this commitment will ensure that happens for a long time.
I hear there's a rumor that you've been tasked to attempt to amend the CBA to reinstitute the Don Shula-driven 5-a-day workouts that were the key to Dolphin success in the 70s and September because of the heat. Any truth to that?
That's not a true rumor, but I will comment that we had Coach out to the training camp, a couple times, and I was standing there with him back in, August and July, and the team was taking a water break. And, we now have, a nutritionist, a sports scientist, and the nutritionist makes a different shake, customized shake for every player afterwards based on, urine tests and all these things that we do to check their salinity and their hydration levels and the different minerals they need. And so they make these custom shakes for everybody, and there's all this sports science going on. Coach Shula just looked at me and said, water breaks? They shouldn't get any water, Well, you didn't have more guys passing out on the field on you back then. But the stories from, Rose and Bo Camper and Greasy and Dan and Matt Moore and all those guys are fantastic. And, I love hearing all the Coach Shula stories. But he certainly was a demanding guy to play for. There's no question.
Yeah, but ladies and gentlemen, check Don Shula's record in September, and you'll understand why that's so serious. 5-6 minutes left. Tom Garfinkel, President and CEO of the Dolphins. What we're really here for as well, a few days from now, the first intra-conference, intra-division rivalry game. The Dolphins take a home game, one of the 8 regular, 10 total, and take it over to London. Talk a little bit about the logistical challenges from a business perspective on transporting a basically medium-sized business to England for a week and then bringing it back.
Well, I mean, it's really, I think the team approaches it no differently than any other away game. I know that sounds a little crazy when you consider, that we're in another country, but, if we were flying to Seattle, it's not terribly different than flying to London. I know the coach decides, when the team comes over and how they choose to prepare. So they're actually coming over, Thursday evening or get in Friday morning and prepare for the game, in a similar fashion that they would another away game that they might fly in for on Saturday. They'll have an extra day or two to get adapted to the time change. But, I think from a logistical and preparation standpoint, I know the coaching staff and Joe Cimino, our equipment manager, is just fantastic. I mean, I often say if everybody has his work ethic and attitude, we'd never lose a game or anything. The guy's just fantastic. So that staff and the way they approach things and the way they handle the logistics and do all that, it's an impressive thing to witness. And I think they approach coming over here to London in a very similar manner than they might go into San Francisco, So we try to keep it as business as usual and not change the routine too much.
That's the on-the-field stuff. Now, from a boardroom perspective, and I know you don't want to get too specific on numbers, but from a business show perspective, the expenses, the NFL making you whole for certain aspects of the trip, the bye week after, but that's more on the field. Kind of just describe the business deal involved in taking a home game overseas.
Well, we work with the NFL on that, and they help make us whole, like you said. We kind of determine tier structure of the games based on the variable pricing and what tier the game might have been in, and kind of do a comparison on what our expenses and revenues are for those games that are comparable games. And then they make us whole for what we would have done, had we held this game at home. I think the experience for the team and for the fans to go over to London, we've certainly got some of our key corporate partners over here that we're entertaining in London. We'll have, we've discovered there's over 1,000 season ticket members coming to the game. So we'll host, we've taken over a pub in downtown London called the Dolphins House, and we'll have alumni players there, and, all day long fans can come in and just interact, and it's kind of Dolphin Central, if you will. And then we'll, obviously at the game, we've got a lot of fans over here in the UK having come over here for many years. And it's an impressive thing. If you go on Twitter, you'll see all the fans we have in the UK, and there's a lot of them. So I think it's good for the sport. It's good for the NFL. It's good for the Dolphins, and it's something we enjoy doing.
Well, a bigger picture, and I know you don't make policy as to expansion versus relocation versus 16 home games and 16 different teams, but Shad Khan, a Jaguars owner, is on record of wanting a game as many years as the NFL will give him one. And the NFL is looking at rotating games, and Mark Waller's been on with us talking about all of the various alternatives he has to consider. Where do you think this is going, and how do you view the Dolphins' role in this grand experiment?
Well, I think from a Dolphins standpoint, it's great for our fans, our partners. Where it's going, I think that's a question for the commissioner and the NFL. I'm not really sure. I will say that, the world's obviously shrinking. Things are, with technology and everything that's happening, access to information, access to content is just much more global now than it had been in the past. And so, expansion and growth can happen internationally, and so from that standpoint, I think the more we get our sport out to more people around the world, the better it is for everybody. And I think it's important for the teams, not just the league, but all the teams to think big picture, think globally, and think longer term. And so from our standpoint, we're one of 32 teams. And if the league asks us to participate in these types of things because it's good for the growth of the sport and the long-term health of the sport, we need to do our part to help that, just like everybody else. And it's good for us too. Again, coming over here, with a big fan base, and it's great for those 1,000 season ticket members and our sponsors and everything come over to the UK. Obviously, I'm here. That's why I keep saying coming over here. I'm already in the UK, but it's great. It's great for them to experience something new and different as well.
And it's a league matter, quite clearly. You're saying all the right political things, as you should. It's not for you to decide. But from a bigger picture perspective, just to end on this, you said earlier that it almost feels like a away game trip to Seattle, and you're looking at moving people weekly and then back. Will it feel like, when all said and done, effectively just another road game, not only for the on-field guys, but also for the front office people as well?
It can. It's certainly special. It's unique. It's different. It's not exactly like a typical road game. You're going into another country. You're going into a significantly different time zone, which changes things for television, obviously. So from that standpoint, it is different. But I do think that again, I'm not sure where it's headed. I think for the NFL to play more games overseas, as long as it's fair for all the teams competitively, meaning everybody, if there is a burden at all on time zone change or schedule or other factors, that all the teams kind of share in that burden equally, and then all the teams share in the benefit equally as well. Because if there wasn't a big benefit for the league and sport, we obviously wouldn't be doing it. But I think where it's headed, I would potentially see more international games being played in more countries in the future. It's certainly not based on any explicit knowledge of that happening. I just would expect that that's sort of, again, the world is shrinking, so it would make sense that that's where it would go.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's good to know that Tom Garfinkel has been consistent with basically everybody we've talked to under Mark Waller and the commissioner's direction on this. And this is not the first, and it won't be the last. Good luck to the Dolphins. Tom Garfinkel, President and CEO of the Dolphins. Sun Life Stadium. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show is Alex Cohen. Audio producer Adam Wiesen. Technical assistance provided by Jamie Weber, Tanner Simpkins, and Carla Swadek. The executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.